how did you start your adventure with oral history?
That's actually an interesting story because, if I may say so myself, so when I was in grad school, I got a small grant from YIVA to go work in their archive, and I was going to go, and I came to New York, and to work in the archive. I get there, and the director of the archive, Lisa Eisen, she says to me, actually, the archive is closed. It's renovations. There's nothing for you to do. So I thought, okay, I'm in New York. What am I going to do? So I decided that I would go to Brighton Beach and I would go and interview some people about, their life in the Soviet Union, because I wanted to do research in the archive, but the archive was closed, so whatever. And that's what I did, and that's how I started to do oral history, just because the archive was closed. So I spent 6 months in New York. I didn't know what I was doing, really. I didn't know it at all. So I asked some friends, do you know any, old Jews from Russia? So I went to interview them in Yiddish. And through friends or whatever, I found some people, and then they would send me to other their neighbors, to their friends. I would often go on the streets of Brighton Beach and just sit with them and say, can I come and interview you? And that's how I got involved in oral history. And then later, I told Yiva about this project, and I said, I'm getting a lot of interesting stuff. They all speak Yiddish, and I'm recording all this beautiful Soviet Yiddish, so maybe it should be the Yiva project. And they said, okay. And then, then I announced I made an announcement in Russian newspapers that I was doing it, and I gave them my cell number, which was a big novelty at the time. And, I had to buy the cell phone from prepaid, and it was very expensive. And it had a voicemail, which was small because I couldn't afford a bigger one. So anyway, so my voicemail was filled with requests for interviews. It was like, it just really overwhelmed. And it was 1999. It was before anybody was interested in Russian Jews. And I interviewed almost 200 people in New York. And then I came back in August and I interviewed more. And I was also working together with Tzvi Gittelman, who was working on interviewing Soviet Jewish veterans. So I said to him, I am interviewing a lot of veterans, and they're giving me stories that I think you will enjoy. So he helped me to find funding for that as well. So somehow I got all into the oral history, and when the archive was open, I already had very different questions which the archive could not answer for me. So as a result, instead of going to YIVO archive, I went to Moscow and started working at the Lenin's library, which now it's called Russian National Library, which has a huge Yiddish collection of published materials. And I wanted to know what are the references that people were telling me. So that's how I got involved in oral history. Later, it grew into a bigger project. I worked with Tzvi Gittelman. We got an amazing grant from Material Claims Conference against Germany on documenting Jewish life before the war. And I went to Germany, interviewed over 100 people there. Then I went to Russia, interviewed more people there. And then I lived in Canada. So at some point, I interviewed people in Canada as well. So altogether, it came to almost 500 interviews from Jews born in the Soviet Union before 1928. Over the kind of experiential learning, I understood that those who were born later really didn't remember anything about the time that I was interested in, so that was my cutoff age. But overall, other than that, no more cutoffs. So I was interested to talk to men and women and Yiddish speakers from small towns, from big towns. So it was very, very wide, this sample. And as a result, I collected all these materials. And when I wrote my first book, Soviet and Kosher, Jewish culture in the Soviet Union, I ended up using only 10% of what I collected. And then I thought, oh my goodness, it's such a shame because I have so much. And then so I wrote another book, which was now based on all these oral histories, and I still used, 30% of what the material, because it's just so much data and so many sources that got collected.